Action will be needed soon. The chaos is spreading. It's only a matter of time before Upsitanzabisius comes here to wipe us out. No, we must not stray from the plan. We will conquer the elders and banish the shadows back to the void. Can we sustain losses if we need it? We must rule the Master Realm. Losses are necessary. This is war. Yes, our people's sacrifice is needed to protect our mission. We will bring balance and compassion back to our realms. But what are these new arrivals? The Dream Priest? We know the Banished Elder and the Dream Priest contacted the one named Mario. Something about him doesn't seem right. And the Dream Priest's friends were a part of the Order of Light, but the Elders are gonna try and destroy him. We need them. They are part of the plan. It doesn't matter. As soon as the throne is unlocked, they are expendable. They will be sacrifices to allow us to fulfill our prophecy. We cannot think like that. We must help them protect the Green Bowl no matter the cost. The Master Realm can only be ours if the Green Bowl is unlocked at the right moment. And Kian? Kian knows what to do when the time comes. We must trust that Kian will guide them. And we must trust that the Dream Beast will not get on our way.
Welcome to the quest for the Green Ball! The war within! And then there were three. That's right, only three undefeated teams remain, and only three winless teams remain as the standings are fairly balanced after 2 weeks of non-divisional play to open up our campaign. This week was another wild one with a monster top 5 league weekly score leading to a first career league win. A battle of kickers on Monday night, and 2 unexpected low-scoring matchups. One of those low-scoring matchups actually happened in our last as Green Acres took on low-key Lebowski Thor at the ruins of Undalshala, with both teams searching for their first win of the season. This one came down to Monday night with a lot of points still available, but in the end it was Green Acres moving to 1-1 overall with a 79-78.02 win. Both players to watch struggled in this one, which is why the scores were so low. Brian Thomas Jr. apparently played with an injured wrist and ended up with just 49 yards. Lebowski Thor also has Joe Burrow now on IR out multiple months. Spears on IR. Joe Mixon still a question mark to return. Austin Eckler now out for the season. A rough string of unfortunate injuries at a time when they fell to 0-2. And yet they still had a chance in this one because Breece Hall only had 38 yards for Green Acres in a dreadful performance by the Jets offense. What saved Green Acres was Baker Mayfield and his 215 passing yards, 33 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a game-winning drive late in the fourth quarter. Kicker Daniel Carlson also came through with 3 field goals, including a 50-plus yarder. Lebowski Thor did push Green Acres on Monday with a 50-plus yard score by Quentin Johnson and a touchdown from old reliable Keenan Allen. Green Acres had just a little more in this one with the Cardinals defense adding a touchdown. It didn't help Lebowski Thor that it kept Jamison Williams, the Ravens defense, not to mention Zach Ertz, on his bench. Overall, this was one Lebowski Thor probably needed more with his injury troubles. but there's plenty of time to recover, and being 0-2 means a higher waiver priority to help with injuries. Lebowski Thor isn't the only squad dealing with injuries. The Overcomers are also dealing with a banged-up squad, and it showed in a 65.78 to 59.12 loss to Thorlacher. Josh Allen was kept out of the end zone after apparently hurting his nose. He fell face first to the turf on a tackle and even had to leave the game for a bit. Jaden Reed hurt himself on his first target, which hurt in a big way, and he's now on IR. Aaron Jones also exited early after an injury and will miss some time as well. Christian Kirk, Xavier Worthy, and Brock Purdy are already injured on our bench, though Kirk and Worthy may be back soon. A big reason, all these injuries, a big reason why the Overcomers fell to 1-1. Touchdowns by James Conner and Saquon Barkley were the bright spots, and it almost was enough because Thorlacher had down games by Derrick Henry, Mike Evans, and Cortland Sutton. And the Cowboys' defense finished with negative points. Patrick Mahomes with 2 scores and Travis Etienne with 89 yards and a touchdown led Thorlacher to the 2-0 start here. My squad, the Stars Are Right, also moved to 2-0 on the season with a battle of kickers leading to a 97.5 to 91.1 victory to stave off a feisty the Stellar Bitches squad that fell to 0-2. My team is not immune to injuries, with Jaden Daniels spraining his knee and being day-to-day and J.J. McCarthy being out 2 to 4 weeks. A 50-plus yarder by Fairbairn helped big time in this one. The 2 stars were Puka Nacua and Devon Achane, both with over 100 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Daniels did throw for 2 scores in garbage time, which helped as well, and Swift rushed for an unlikely garbage time score that ended up being huge as the Bears got beat down by the Lions. Bijan Robinson had 168 yards, and Roma Dunze went off for 128 yards and 2 scores to lead the Stellar Bitches. Golden Ticket is the other 2-0 team after dominating defending champion Pounders, which fell to 1-1. And a 119.7 to 71.38 beatdown. Lamar Jackson went out for 4 touchdowns, and Jamar Chase broke out with 165 yards and a score, even with Burrow getting injured in that game. Devontae Adams also looked good with over 100 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs and Chuba Hubbard both scored for Pounders, but Justin Fields is now in the concussion protocol and had a horrendous game with under 4 points. We did have a high-scoring, electric matchup with Remember the Titans getting in the win column for the first time while handing the Clash at Demon Head their first loss in a 117.8 to 107.44 thriller. Remember the Titans did some tinkering and decided to stick with Drake May, who rewarded him for 3 touchdowns. The Seahawks defense added a score in a nice streaming move, and Jamar Gibbs came to life with over 100 yards and a score. Overall, a really balanced attack, with all but 1 player scoring at least 9 points. The Clash at Demon Head did 2 touchdowns by James Cook, 3 more by Trevor Lawrence, and over 100 yards and a touchdown by Christian McCaffrey. But in the end, they needed just a little bit more balance in this tough loss. Lastly, we had a little bit of league history as Treat 'em and Eat 'em finished with the 4th best weekly score in league history. 166.76 to 97.14 victory over the Fighting Mooses in the rivalry battle for the Boo Boo Bus. Both are league rookies. Treat 'em and Eat 'em also celebrated their first career league win here besides getting that Boo Boo Bus. The Jared Goff and Sun God connection was a major reason for this success. Goff had 5 touchdowns, and 3 of them went to the Sun God. They combined for over 74 points. Jonathan Taylor also went into beast mode with 215 yards and a touchdown. And then there's Brandon Aubrey, who dropped 22 points as a kicker, led by 2 50-plus yard field goals. The Fighting Mooses didn't have a bad game either, though. Malik Neighbors showed off his skills with 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nico Collins came to life with a score of his own, and Kenneth Walker decided to become a starting running back again with 118 yards and a touchdown. Negative points by the Denver defense was a surprise, but it would have been tough against the juggernaut that was Treat 'em and Eat 'em. So the Fighting Mooses will look to week 3 to try and earn their first league win. And while the league is balanced, the divisions are not. The Stars Are Right move into first place, my squad, in the Dream Division at 2-0. But it's Green Acres in second now over the Overcomers due to points tiebreaker. The Fighting Mooses are 0-2, but it's mostly due to having 261 plus points against in 2 weeks. That's rough. Thorlacker sits atop the Shadow Division at 2-0. Treatum and Yeetum is all the way up to second by points tiebreaker in a division with 3 1-1 teams. The Clash at Demon Head are ahead of defending champion Pounders as well, as Pounders has the third least points in the league so far. Golden Ticket leads the Power Division at 2-0, followed by 1-1 Remember the Titans. The Stellar Bitches and Low-Key Lebowski Thor are both 0-2, and both also have the second least and overall least points in the league, respectively. Of course, the weekly score by Treatum and Yeetum in Week 2 has only 370-plus point performances ahead of that one all time. Former league member and former champion Risky Business had 173.54 points in 2023. The multiple scoregasms, now the Overcomers, dropped 173.38 points in 2018. And Low-Key Lebowski Thor had 170.1 points in 2019. Many other squads had 160 or more points as well, but it's Treatum and Yeetum at fourth of all time. And as fate would have it, Treatum and Yeetum will be in the next taking on my squad. The Stars are right in a huge early season showdown at the Eagna River Crossing. Before we get into the matchup, let's continue our journey in the Master Realm.
A river? How do we cross it?
We will arrive at the next section shortly. The Eagna River Crossing.
That's strange. I don't see any bridges or ways across in the distance. Don't tell me that we have to swim. That will be hard with a bunch of dreaming sleepwalkers behind us.
We must travel through an underground passage to reach that island over there.
Is it me? Or does it look like that island goes underwater on a cycle?
We'll have limited time to cross the island, but the water is the least of our worries.
What do you mean?
The scavengers will be traveling along the river to find us, so we need to remain in the underground passage on the way back off the island. The caves are filled with vegetation that produce spores. These spores will hatch inside you, and microscopic plants will eat you from the inside.
Can't we just avoid the places with high concentrations of spores? Possibly wear masks?
That won't work. The vegetation will hunt us. It's sentient. So we'll need to not only wear masks, but may need to hide.
I don't get something. Why is the Master Realm so dangerous? I thought this place was ruled in balance.
Not since the Elders opened the Void. Areas like this became corrupted with invasive species from other realms that traveled through it and arrived here. That's why we split with the Elders. Our defiance of their plan is what began this war. But as always, we should try to take our mind off things by enjoying another big match. Will the Stars Alright get another chance at a title after coming so close multiple times? Will Treatum and Yeetum claim glory this season after being conjured by the Elder Magic to replace a vanished friend?
Well, that sounds like fun. I feel like you're distracting us for another reason.
I told you before. I must earn your trust.
Get us through this river crossing and protect us from these scavengers, and we might just trust
Your
you.
wish is my command. Now shh. The scavengers are close.
Treatum and Yeetum is getting big props from the computers based on last week's performance and comes in with a 60.8% chance to win. This one will come down to Monday with 3 Lions players going again. Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and the Sun God will be key here. But Baltimore is a tougher defense than the Bears, and the game is outside as well, and the Lions are on the road. It's also primetime, so who knows? Treatum and Yeetum will need a shootout here, and will need the Lions to slow down Derrick Henry to avoid too much time of possession for the Ravens, which would obviously limit offensive opportunities for the Lions. The Stars Are Right have at least 2 Dolphins players going Thursday night, which is always a risk. Devon Achane is certainly a key to the success of the team. Jalen Waddle came to life last week and is being counted on to do enough here. And Tua Tagovailoa may be playing as well if Jaden Daniels puts in 2 no practices before the Thursday night game. The Bills' defense dominated the Jets, but struggled against the Ravens, Like Treat 'em and Eat 'em, the Stars Are Right will be hoping for a shootout, especially if they need to fill in for Daniels with Tagovailoa. Another need for the Stars Are Right is for DeAndre Swift to keep pace with Montgomery to not lose too much ground. Both are projected similar totals. Puka Nacua will be a major key for the Stars Are Right as well, as they are one of the stars in my squad. Deebo Samuel might be rushing the ball more if Daniels is out, but obviously can, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. Tucker Kraft has a major advantage over the very disappointing Mark Andrews at tight end, who's essentially non-existent in the passing game for the Ravens, a huge concern for my squad. Both kickers can nail 50-plus yarders here, and both defenses have decent matchups to pick up some turnovers. Despite being a low projected match, this one could be surprising. It could actually be high for one of us, both of us, who knows? I actually think the low projection might be a little too low. And I am turning to two players that could certainly switch any narratives here. For the Stars Are Right, my squad, I look at wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, recently picked up off waivers. Robinson has caught 14 of 18 passes from Russell Wilson so far this season and broke out last week with 142 yards and a score. Robinson has bettered his stats each season, with last year's 699 yards and 3 touchdowns, both career highs for overall. He's a deep threat with speed, but obviously needs to show consistency if he plans to truly break out and best his totals from the last 3 years. Wilson is known to put a lot of air under the ball and really give deep threats a chance. We've seen that in Seattle. We've seen that in Pittsburgh. And with Malik Neighbors getting a lot more attention, Robinson might be able to get open even more. And this seems to be true on third downs. Robinson's been targeted over 54% of the time on third downs this season. And last year, 31 of his 93 receptions were on third downs. Those stats bode well for an offense that should put up more points than last season, as long as Wilson doesn't get too caught up in his strange Subway sandwich commercials. Kansas City is the defense, though, and they tend to keep games low scoring even in losses. The Chiefs held A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to just 80 yards combined last week, but they did allow 147 yards and 3 touchdowns to Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen the week before. So which defense shows up here? Well, if Robinson continues to get targets and makes catches on third down, he can put up solid flex performance numbers here, but he can also put up a dud if the Chiefs defense shows up like they did last week. Moving to Treat 'em and Yeet 'em, I'm looking at another wide receiver, T. Higgins. Higgins has been expected to be a solid wide receiver too in a pass-heavy Bengals offense, but with Joe Burrow now out and Jake Browning taking over, there might be a little volatility there. I don't know. Higgins is still very talented when healthy. He had 911 yards and 10 touchdowns last season, also put up 2 1,000-yard seasons earlier in his career. This season has been slow to start, even with Joe Burrow for most of it. 6 receptions on 12 targets for just 89 yards. Does have a touchdown. And who threw Higgins that touchdown? It was Browning, showing that Higgins can still make plays with the backup in there. In fact, Higgins caught a 42-yard touchdown pass last week from Browning. And Browning did throw the ball 32 times. While Browning is not Burrow, it's a good sign for Higgins that he's still slinging it. Browning is still slinging it, albeit with worse accuracy, of course. Higgins does go up against a decent Vikings defense this week. They allowed 138 yards and no touchdowns to Falcons receivers last week and allowed just 72 yards and 1 touchdown to Bears receivers in week 1. This is much different than the end of last season when they allowed 8 touchdowns to receivers and over 200 yards to the team's receivers twice in the final 5 games of the regular season. Which defense shows up here will be key to Higgins' performance, whether they can get to Browning and pressure him into mistakes. If Higgins continues to make connections with Browning like last week, Treat 'em and Eat 'em will probably be celebrating another nice performance from her flex player. But if Higgins is held in check, well, it could be the window the Stars Are Right my squad need to eliminate the computer's perceived advantage. Now, we do have some other key matchups before we finally move to our first divisional matchups next week. 2-0 Thorlacher takes on 0-2 the Stellar Midges. Thorlacher has a 59.9% chance to win here. Bijan Robinson versus Derrick Henry is a big-time key. The battle at quarterback is big, too, with Mahomes versus Murray. But the question marks are even bigger. Can A.J. Brown finally break out? Will Travis Etienne continue his hot start and fill our group text with Etienne chants? This one might come down to Monday night, putting it squarely on the shoulders of Henry. 1-1 defending champion Pounders takes on 0-2 low-key Lebowski Thor in a quarterfinal rematch from a year ago. Unfortunately for Lebowski Thor, he needs a lot after being crippled by injuries. Pounders had a 77% chance to win on Tuesday night before waivers. But Justin Fields is in the concussion protocol, so both have quarterback questions. Javonte Williams, Josh Jacobs, and Chuba Hubbard might be the ones driving Pounders here. And then there's CeeDee Lamb, of course. You can't count out Lamb. Lebowski Thor needs Chase Brown, Johnston, and Allen to once again step up. 1-1, remember the Titans faces off against 0-2 the Fighting Mooses. And the Fighting Mooses have a 56.2% chance to win. The running back edge goes to Remember the Titans, and the wide receiver edge goes to the Fighting Mooses. So I think the difference will actually be Hurts versus May at quarterback in the Seattle versus Denver defense battle. 1-1, the clash at Demon Head plays 1-1 the Overcomers, which are still looking to shake off being last season's dick butt. It helps that the computers have the Overcomers as 59.1% favorites here. Josh Allen is a massive advantage on paper, but Trevor Lawrence has started the season fairly strong. Saquon Barkley, James Conner, and Bill versus Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, and Zay Flowers looks to be the must-watch portion of this one. The Packers' defense might be the true difference maker, though. Finally, we have 2-0 Golden Ticket in a huge matchup against 1-1 Green Acres. Golden Ticket has a 65.2% chance to win. Lamar Jackson versus Baker Mayfield is massive, as Kyron Williams versus Bucky Irving is. But there's also the question mark of star receivers with backup quarterbacks. Chase has Browning throwing his way. Jefferson has Wentz throwing his way. This one might end up being much lower of a score than the projections say, or it could be another surprise, which is not shocking in Week 3. This week is huge in that it sets up the divisional matchup storylines for Week 4. It also gives us interesting wildcard scenarios already, with just 5 out of divisional matchups left. There will still be a lot of movement in the power rankings and end-of-season projections, and 3-0 and 0-3 won't mean as much as it has in the past, with all of us still getting 6 divisional matchups. But these first 3 weeks will ultimately mean something, especially when we get to the head-to-head tiebreakers. So teams will want to end this first stretch of games with a win and head into divisional play with some momentum. That's the show for the week. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we continue our trek in the Master Realm while battling divisional foes for the first time in 2025. Until next week, salut. Before you go, here's the updated power rankings.